Good morning. Welcome to 4x8 Paper Stuff. This is Beth. We are in a creative mixed media art journal, a traveler's notebook size, following the words and wisdom of Mark Twain in his book, Following the Equator. Sit down, enjoy, and let's see where we go. Alrighty, we're going to do a final flip through. I'm going to try to keep this in frame. Ouch. Sorry, I'm sitting down on my wheelie cart. Okay, volume 1. Oh, there's New Zealand. I didn't know the shape of New Zealand. I do now, see? I never did put a thingy here. Started in Vancouver, and the ship taking him to the Sandwich Islands, which was 2,343 miles at sea. And there's fish. When he got to the Sandwich Islands, there was a quarantine, so they could not get off. The Sandwich Islands have now been changed to the name Hawaii. And he crossed the international date line, which I thought that was cool because that showed up on that paper tomorrow. He saw the Southern Cross constellation out at sea. This was at sea. This is when I really got into the mode of this journal. And I really got into Old Wall / Nick Bantock / my Hogini style. Tim Holtz, Jose Naranja, and Nick Bantock kind of meshed. It's called Hogini. It's a combination of all their names. And this was a mirror that I cut out of a magazine that had a person standing on a beach right here. And this was a glass of sea urchins and a coral piece out of a magazine. And I put them over people in this. But this was a jelly plate on a piece of deli paper that had all this stuff all over. It just, to me, this is still one of my favorite pages. Then I was going to do, he was on his way to Fiji, and I was going to do something with this, but I didn't. I took it off, but I kept this because Fiji is a focal point of one of my constant, longest viewers in her life. So I left it in there for her. This is Fiji. This is what that page morphed into. Here's magazine letters. And lots of stuff, stickers and a piece of paper that I made out of a bunch of stuff, a collage of mine, and talking about the 300 or so islands around in Fiji. Kurti, my people that I've been watching for a year on YouTube that are on a catamaran finally got to leave Fiji since March. They're allowed to go back to Tonga to where their catamaran is. This is, he was talking about the humidity in Fiji and on his way to Australia. And he compared it to Columbia, South Carolina on page 114, which is where I live, Columbia, South Carolina. So I had to have that in there. The light bouncing off dolphin and their shiny skin from the moonlight. That's what he talked about there. And there's dolphin stickers from PRT stickers. No, those were Mrs. Grossman's. This was Sydney and the prison. He talked about the prison colony. And this was a paper that my granddaughter made. She straight goes into mud every time. And I just thought this was actually pretty mud. And it reminded me of a dank, dark wall in a prison colony. And he talked about prisons, sharks, and sheep. So I decided to focus on sharks and sheep in this. And this is a photocopy of a paper towel that had been painted with Jane Davenport mermaid markers. Melbourne, and his train trip was 17 miles. This is a train from a children's book that I photocopied. He saw a kangaroo. Oh, no. He saw birds, but no kangaroos. So here's a kangaroo and birds. And talking about Wagga Wagga in Australia, another deli plate page on jelly plate page on deli paper, and some ephemera that I have collected along the way. The Melbourne Cup, which was cool. I didn't know about that. I learned a lot about that. Adelaide, and he talked about, oh, this was cool. Specifically said he left the train station at 4:20. So I put in 4:20. You can barely see it here. And then he said something about 13, or no, 17. And this was on a piece of paper that I already had, but it had these dots on it, so I numbered them. I don't know, it ended up on 17, which was something he talked about too. So it all kind of just serendipitously fell together. Adelaide, foliage, and kangaroo leather. And a gum tree. He talked about gum tree, so I put gum tree right here, and some Australian stamps. And then a botanical garden event he went to, and he talked about boomerangs and wheat weeds. So I put those there, and a boomerang border here, and dingo dogs. And those were magazines and flowers out of magazines. It was all English memories and different people that he talked about just recollecting in the back of his travels from other times. So I just chose to put a kangaroo and an Oceania stamp here, and some more paper that I kind of have been recreating and creating. This is a printable from a Patreon account that I only sponsored 2, and that's one of them. And she's the one that led me to Nick Bantock. Talked about Aborigines and wheats again. And so I had a picture of Aborigine ladies, and it just kind of meshed with all these colors. I thought, oh, Aborigine fabric and artwork, that would normally blend in a journal of mine. But this vintage one, it does not blend in at all. But that's okay. It reminds me of their beautiful art, which I love. And I still haven't put this down. This was me. Oh, what was here? Oh, I wrote out something with my Neocolor 2s and then took... What was that? Oh, I'm trying to move my leg. I took a very thin paint, this children's paint, tempera paint, and went over this. And I loved how this turned out. And I don't know, he's on a train to Horsham and Stallwell. Did I spell Horsham? I can't remember what I spelled. I don't know. Anyhow, I still don't know where I want to put that because I don't want to cover this. And Ballarat and a gold mine, I did the same thing, and I spelled Ballarat out. And more gold and Bendigo, and talking about late trains. And this was just these old men. I imagine them sitting around the train station waiting for the very late train. And into New Zealand. New Zealand stamps, New Zealand old vintage travel posters, a map of New Zealand. This needs to go here somewhere, maybe. Oh, gosh. Goodbye. Sorry. My husband scared the living daylights out of me. Okay. He's going to go pick up another microwave. Microwave Saga Day 3, or Part 3. Our microwave, which is one of those over the stove one installed with the vent over the stove built into it, broke. Again, it's probably 10 years old or 12 or 13 years old. But we had to wait for the place that we buy most of our appliances didn't have them in stock. They're back ordered. So they let us have a loaner that fell off a truck and broke the how do I want to say this? The outside. Nothing on the mechanism part broke. It was just cosmetic. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's just the kind that you sit on the counter. So we've had 2 microwaves, one broken, one sitting on the counter. The loaner broke this morning. So we thought, well, maybe it's the outlet. Maybe that outlet's going bad. Well, he moved it into another outlet. No, it doesn't work. So in the meantime, the guys, the stock came in last week, but they have like 4 people on their installation crew that have COVID. So they're waiting for that to be over with. But our new microwave is there. So my husband says, what if I go get the new microwave and just sit it on the counter? Because he doesn't know how to install the kind that go over a stove under a cabinet. And so they said, yes, come get your new one. Bring us the old one. Or bring us the loaner. And they're not mad at us for breaking it or whatever happened to it. We don't know. Because it was already broken. They couldn't sell it. There was just going to be a loaner. Anyhow, he just was telling me that he would be right back and not to do anything crazy. But he scared the living daylights out of me. Okay, so here, we're back in New Zealand. Okay, I just put a lot of stuff on here. Australia vintage things that I could find. And New Zealand things. And then I have to have circles on something in every project. And he was passing Tasmania on his way to New Zealand here. And this piece of paper was around and it just reminded me of ocean bubbles, and he's at sea again. So it's on a piece of map paper. This is Hobart, Tasmania. And he talked about cliffs along the shoreline. So I was trying to get cliffs abstractly. Oh, and this is when the California fires were so bad, and I made my own paper on Procreate with a bunch of California fire stuff. A tree on fire, flames, a map of the area, and a sign for Big Basin National Park, or Big Basin State Park, which is one of the places we used to go camping. It is now gone. All of the buildings and everything in it are gone. Anyhow, I put that in the background. So it kind of reflects current times and this book. And then this I just scribbled. I think I wrote fire in California fires and something here that's not legible. And then he was in Dunedin, New Zealand, and talking about the Maori people. Maori. Hopefully I'm saying that right. This paper, I don't know where I got this paper from, but it's really cool. And it just has lots of different fonts, and I made little examples of their tattoos here. And then the Maryborough by train speed 20.5 miles. He made a big deal about saying 20.5 miles. And again, I just did a lot of tribal New Zealand, tribal statuary and things like that in here. That was volume 1. I thought this was only going to be a 10-minute video. Maybe not. Volume 2. Talked about the women had the right to vote in New Zealand way before we did. In 1893. I wrote it on that hand. So, yeah, don't underestimate other cultures just because you don't understand them. They might be way farther evolved than you are, especially in the United States right now. Just saying. He talked about Nelson, New Plymouth, Auckland, and Rotorua geysers in Wales. And I replicated some more of the paper that I got off the printables on my patron sponsor place in Wales. Here's a whale sticker. And then some of that was in that other book on New Zealand, and I just used it again. I always thought I would be a person that couldn't use things more than once, but I'm starting to evolve slowly, and I don't mind using things again. And a lot of this Procreate stuff that I'm making, I'm using images over and over again, but using them in different ways. And I put stamps on top of these, so that was okay. In my head, it works now. It didn't used to work at all. This was different places in New Zealand, and I was superimposed it on the shape of New Zealand in Procreate. That was really one of my very first successes in Procreate. And then talking about different cities here, but he mentioned his wife and daughter which I didn't even have a clue that they were on this voyage with him. But after going back and reading one of the first few pages, he did mention them very early on. I just skimmed over it. Again, a Hojanini page for sure. Nick Bantock, a lot of this. And he was in Wanganui and Wellington. And then it's back to Australia, he said. More admiration for the Maori people. And then this is kind of like an old-fashioned sea chart. It was Friday the 13th. And he's back to Sydney to a train bound for Newcastle and Scone along the Hawkesbury River. This was Dina Wakely's paper. And he was going from Australia to Ceylon. And I kind of thought I could get away with these tropical colors because he said the scenery is a mixture of oriental and tropical with flames of color everywhere. So I thought I could do that. And then, he's arrived in Bombay by way of the Arabian Sea. And here's a map of India and the reds. He talked a lot about the reds in people's clothing. So we had lots of red. And this is just acrylic on a piece of paper that I swished around and had in my stash. This is Nick Bantock again. A tad ill cared for by manservant that names are steeped in, and he talked about their names and the Indian names, and they're steeped in spirit, he said. But this is a Nick Bantock piece that I cannibalized and put in different ways in my paper page. Is this two papers or? Anyhow, he's back to or closer to the equator, but I was wrong. He was not at the equator, but he talked a lot about the equator. And he talked about the power of a funeral and the power of ceremony and the power of earth, fire, and water in India and in their culture. He did a lot in India, which was cool. Talked a lot about Jainism and a Jain temple trip, a time for, I don't have my, praying and, I don't have my glasses on, reacting aloud, finding my center. Anyhow, about this point, I think I had found my center in this book. Beautiful color, beautiful and colorful wedding event that went for days. Plague happening around us, so sad. It was the contrast between a wedding, which was happy, and the ceremonial days and days of a wedding in India, and then the plague. He just called it the plague, where people were dying at the same time. This is fabric or paper that I made out of fabric on Procreate. And this is where I did my log, which needs to be updated, but I have all my log sheets in here, like a captain would on a boat, which I love the look of these things. I won't need that, maybe not. But I just love the look of this. Charts, this is more Jose Naranja, charts and lines, and I just love that look. So that is what that is. And a train day and to Baroda, and you had to buy your own bedding, which was hugely written about in this chapter. Oh, I gotta move my leg again. And there's an antique train car pictures here. We went for an elephant ride, so there's an elephant. And he talked about the beautiful jewels on the elephant. Back onto the train, I met a very clever dachshund and his owner on the train. He talked about that a lot. Beautiful India was all about the wording in this chapter. Of course, I messed up the shape of India, but it's going to stick like that. Saris, and I had photocopied some saris and some patterns of saris. Put them in this little pocket. And just Indian pictures here with Indian script. And Allahabad by train, Allahabad. And there's a beautiful train station. The old English train stations, which are still around in India, are beautiful. And again, this was more Hojini, just combining pictures. And Jumna and the Ganges River merge in Allahabad. And he talked about that. Again, this is fabric. This is the same fabric that was on right there. Sort of. It just is a different parts of it stretched out. This is Benares. Is older than history, older than tradition, older even than legend, is what he was saying about India. So he talked about temples and mosques here. And I have a picture of a mosque and a temple. And the hurly-burly of human life swarming along the web of narrow streets with a few sacred cows added. That's his words, not mine. I just think that was very poetic. Nick Bantock again. He talked about a beautiful Maharaja, and I love that word, Maharaja. And I did some facts about the Ganges River and how the contrast of nasty but purifying. I thought that was kind of interesting. Oh, you know what? The Jumna River had blue tinges, and the Ganges had yellow tinges. So that's why I had blue and sort of like an orange-yellow paper here. And then he talked about, he went up into the clouds by train and to Darjeeling. And he talked about wild animals and the deaths of wild animals. So I pretended like this was a train car window going up in the clouds. And he talked about, this is when he's just winding down the book rapidly. Here's a train through some of the tea fields. Calcutta, tiger hunt, Himalayas, up in the clouds, a banyan tree, train ride, Darjeeling, wild animals, all in like 2 chapters. And then this is where I started combining the chapters at the end so I could finish it by the end of today and ready to start October Halloween. And he talked about the Taj Mahal and this man at the Taj Mahal. So I'm in an elephant. So I'm kind of just put all that together on some more handmade paper. And Mozambique channel on his way to South Africa, which is where the book ends. He saw monkeys and there was another plague going on. So there's little skeletons here. And then the last day he talked about diamond mines and gold mines in Durban, Johannesburg, and Cape Town. And chameleons, which I never did get a chameleon, but it is what it is. And that's the end of my Mark Twain Following the Equator journey. And I have loved this. I have loved the learning. I love learning by journaling, and I learned a lot. And I think that's cool when you can learn by journaling. It sticks in my head. It appeals to my heart. This paper appeals to my heart. Making the videos appeals to my heart. And now Halloween appeals to my heart. And we're full force into Halloween. I was going to bring my Halloween stuff here, but the logistics of bringing it all back in here to film is horrendous for me right now with this big old lung of a cast that I'm dragging around. And so I'm not. I'll just show you when I start. But I'm doing Mab's Graves Halloween, Mab's Draw Halloween, I think is the name of it. I have it all ready to go on an introduction thing. And I'm doing Inktober. I don't know any of the controversy. I know there was controversy. I'm not sure what the controversy is. I'm on nobody's side of the controversy. I don't know what the controversy is. Let me repeat. I don't know what the controversy is. I'm just going to use those prompts. And I'm doing an altered book and a traveler's notebook that I made myself out of paper. It's already got the paper in it, but I'm adding stuff to it. Both of them have an underlying theme of a haunted, abandoned hospital because of this stupid leg right now. It just had to be done. If you have to live with it for 3 months, you got to make fun of it, right? Right. So thanks for watching. Thanks for all your kind comments all the way through this project. And join me for the next project, which is Halloween. Yay! Bye.